Welcome to your news at noon on Kaieteur Radio. I'm Ken Smith. The AFC has not given the new production sharing agreement a passing grade just yet, based on the preliminary provisions announced by Vice President Jadio last Thursday. In fact, the political party believes that the entire deal must be scrutinized in depth before Guyanese laud the contract a better deal compared to the 2016 ExxonMobil contract. Putting this into perspective was Shadow Oil and Gas Minister David Patterson during the party's most recent press conference. Patterson was keen to point out that while 10% royalty, for instance, may sound exciting in the country, Guyana could be losing out big in other areas. ExxonMobil continues to reap exponential profits from Guyana's lucrative Stabroek block and the lopsided contract it signed with the government in 2016. Stakeholders are beginning to challenge the terms the country got and are demanding more wealth from all future projects to be approved by the government. Leader of the opposition, for instance, yesterday said that all additional projects Exxon wants to pursue in the Stabroek block must adhere to the new terms announced by the government to rake in more wealth for the country. He explained that when the contract was signed by the coalition administration 6 years ago, the company was operating in an uncertain environment where the possibility of discovering large deposits of oil was a mere hope. However, since more than 11 billion barrels of oil resources have been found in that block alone, Norton argued that the environment has changed, meaning that Exxon should now match the royalty and tax rates the government wants from the oil blocks. And still on ExxonMobil Corporation, this time along with British oil giant Shell, are selling their California wells, and officials are worried that the reason behind their departure is a looming liability for environmental cleanup, which can be left on taxpayers to foot the bill. Decommissioning is the process of ending offshore oil and gas operations at an offshore platform and returning the ocean and seafloor to its pre-lease condition. ProPublica also reported that the oil giants agreed to sell more than 23,000 wells in California, which they owned through a joint venture called Era Energy, to German asset management group IKAV for an estimated $4 billion. While Exxon and Shell say the deal will strengthen their businesses, Greg Rogers, an attorney and accountant who researches the oil and gas industry, said the deal allows the sellers to shed decommissioning costs. Meanwhile, 2 persons are currently hospitalized with severe injuries following a horrific accident at Friendship, East Bank, Demerara on Saturday night. Police identified the 2 individuals as a male motorcyclist and a female pillion rider. Investigators said that the last update received from doctors on their condition was that they were stable. We learned that the motorcyclist had crashed into a vehicle along Friendship Public Road. So far, investigators were told that the motorcyclist was speeding and somehow ended up in the path of the vehicle. And just before we head to a short break, let's tell you that the Caribbean Development Bank continues to work with countries in the region to build resilience, recognizing the impact of climate change on all aspects of economies. So said Mr. Ian Durant, the bank's Director of Economics. Speaking at the conference on the economy hosted by the University of the West Indies, Mr. Durant highlighted the bank's interventions in the area and advocated for diverse strategies to safeguard the future. Building resilience also involves advanced budgeting and planning, the director indicated, adding that disaster risk management strategies in the economic domain must be developed and can include natural disaster and pandemic escape clauses in financing instruments, as well as budget reallocation, external credit, temporary tax increases, and donor assistance. You're listening to Kaieteur Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. This is your main newscast. We'll return shortly after the break.
Right now, children are at an increased risk of sexual abuse, and the perpetrator can be nearer than you think. So stay alert and be aware. Be aware of your neighbors. Be aware of your friends. Be aware of the people you have in your home. Do not become complacent. Protect children now. You can make a report to the police or call the CPA hotline on 227-0979.
A message from the Child Care and Protection Agency, Ministry of Human Services and Social Security, and UNICEF.
Diana, join me on the Glenn Lal Show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7:20 p.m. and a rebroadcast at 11 a.m. The Glenn Lal Show, only on Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 and 99.5 FM.
This is GHK Lal inviting you to join me weekdays from Monday to Friday on the National Outlook for commentary on a range of issues. Immediately after the 12 noon and 7 p.m. newscasts on Kaieteur Radio at 99.1 FM and 99.5 FM. Looking forward to you sharing in the conversation.
Welcome back. Let's tell you that the Caribbean Development Bank continues to work with countries in the region to build resilience, recognizing the impact of climate change in all aspects of the economies. And in other news, late noises on Saturday alerted a resident of Lusignan, East Coast Demerara, to find a murdered man in front of his home. The dead man was described as an individual of Amerindian descent and, according to police, is unidentified. The remains were found at 23 hours 40, bleeding from what looked like multiple stab wounds to his neck. The resident who found the dead man reportedly told police that he was sitting in his living room watching television when he heard some noises coming from outside his home. He went outside to investigate and saw a man lying on the road. Get the full details in today's Kaieteur News. A notice has been placed in the newspaper by Supreme Court of Judicature seeking persons with a direct interest in the case where two Guyanese citizens, President of the Transparency Institute of Guyana Inc., Frederick Collins, and another citizen, Godfrey White, have taken the Environmental Protection Agency to court to enforce a critical clause in the Liza Phase 1 environmental permit recently issued to ESSO. According to the notice, any person with direct interest in the matter may file a similar application or apply to be joined as a party to the proceedings within 14 days of the publication of the notice dated October 27th. The matter is being heard by Justice Sandil Kasoon at 3 p.m. Meanwhile, a 44-year-old baker was on Saturday killed at Enmore, East Coast Demerara. My apologies, we'll take a short break and return. We're experiencing a short technical glitch. Welcome back. We do apologize. Let's tell you that a 44-year-old baker was on Saturday killed at Enmore, East Coast Demerara, in an accident that involved a pickup vehicle attached to the Ministry of Public Works and another car. The dead man was identified as Anil Ramanand, a father of one of Logwood squatting area Enmore, who was reportedly heading back into work on his bicycle when he met his demise in the accident around 16 hours 15. Ramanand's mother said that her son had left his home that afternoon to complete some work at Budram's bakery where he was employed. And in other news, after being viciously robbed by bandits last Wednesday, November 2nd, Pastor Wendell Jeffrey recounted the traumatic events that took place that day. He said the incident occurred at Festival City exit South Rhineville, just a few houses away from his home. The pastor recalled that it was approximately 6 hours when he was taking an early morning walk down his regular route, that he was jumped by 3 young men on 2 motorcycles. He said that while this robbery was taking place, he mentioned to them that he was a pastor and conduct activities to rehabilitate men like them. His words, however, fell on deaf ears as the robbers had no interest in what he was saying. Jeffrey expressed his frustration that he made an immediate police report following the matter and was told to wait for what he described was what felt like hours for a police investigator to come see him, and eventually became frustrated, waiting, and left the station and refused to further pursue the report he made. He said since he left the outpost, he has not been contacted by the police ranks to follow up. And it is time to close things off with the page 7 of today's Kaieteur News, dedicated to being blunt. Jagdeo does it again. Guyanese started Bara Jagdeo ran short of tricks, but he surprised them again. His newest rabbit from the hat is his new production sharing agreement, or PSA. Amazing the hoops that Jagdeo jumps through to avoid renegotiation. We wonder what he is going to come up with next. Christmas bonus for public servants, another handout for the joint services, another bailout for out-of-pocket Guyanese. That brings us to the end of today's News at Noon. I'm Kevin Smith. Thank you for listening.
Want value for your advertising dollar? Then place your ads on Kaieteur Radio's Newscasts. Streamed live on 6 different mediums, reaching hundreds of thousands. Advertise today and watch your dollar grow. Call us on 225-8465 or 226-8210 today.